But I can make you a co-host, and now that I've made you a co-host, you might be able to jump in and start doing stuff. I
Hi.
can. Oh,
Sorry.
there we go. There it
Hi.
is.
I was trying to connect through my phone because one of the joys of living tiny is, you're a little bit flexible on some things. So my flexibility is that my internet connection is beautiful for everything that I need except for live streaming, or not live
Okay.
streaming
Yeah.
for video discussion. So I was trying to
Yep.
use my cell phone to do the connection. This
Yeah.
might um, freeze for like 1 second every 5 minutes or so. I'm on Starlink. Starlink's
Okay.
fantastic. I just don't have the best visibility where I am for
Okay.
the light. So unfortunately, yeah, it wouldn't let me connect through the phone. I didn't have the option.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I know there's always seems to be something, but this seems to be working really well right now. And if it freezes up, everybody will be patient about it. So,
Yeah, and
and
I do have a special friend, a guest, a friend guests crashing my talk. So Shorty Robbins, she put on many of the festivals throughout the East Coast. She was one of the co-creators, not co-creators, co-producers of the United Tiny House Association festival. So she's got years of experience, and she's been to probably just as many or more festivals as I've been and paneled and had lots of speaking engagements there. So she'll be able to pop in, and anytime I freeze, she can fill in for me, and she can flesh out any answers or pop in and answer any questions as well. So hopefully she'll be joining
perfect.
shortly.
Yeah, that
So
sounds great.
yeah, I'm really excited. So for those that don't know me, my name is Jill Kanto, and I am the founder of ChooseTiny.com. I built my tiny house DIY style in 2015, and I have two small children. At the time, I had two small children, and I've my big interest is tiny house communities, living in community, sharing resources, working collaboratively. And I've been so fortunate to have been to 40, 50 festivals as a speaker, and I've met amazing people and just kind of downloaded their knowledge base. And I'd love to share that information with everybody. I'd love if people could use the Q&A, the actual Q&A function. I'll keep that open. I think that'll make it easier instead of trying to scroll through and find all the questions. I wanted to just provide a space for people to ask whatever type of questions that they have about living tiny. I'm going to, it says I froze up. I'm glad you can still hear me at least. I'm going to keep on talking about all the tiny experiences that I've been having most recently. And as soon as I see a question pop up on the Q&A, I'll just pop in and answer that. I just got back from a community. Intentional community is different from a neighborhood, um, in the sense that you have a higher level of interdependence. So you're choosing to work together on some level. It could be very, very minimal, where you might like host a game night once a week, or all the way to like Amish barn raising, where you're working together very collaboratively. Um, and the communities conference was amazing. I got to meet a lot of new communities. This isn't just related to tiny houses, but I think it's something that is a valuable resource to the tiny house movement, as I think it goes hand in hand with a lot of the reasons that people go tiny. Um, and you can find a directory of intentional communities at ic.org. And my site and their site are looking to see if we can work together and collaborate quite a bit and alleviate some of the work we're doing, um, by um, by joining our efforts together. And I also got back recently in July from doing the Colorado Tiny House Festival, and I did a tour of several different tiny house communities in Colorado, and got to see, and I actually, those were mostly in Durango, and I got to meet and interview a bunch of the people who were creating the communities to get more of a pulse on the hurdles that the creators were what the tiny house community developers were hitting, and if I felt whether or not they were necessarily meeting people's needs in the more like day-to-day granular level, or if it was more about investments. And I'm happy to report that most of the communities that I came across in Durango were indeed developing, definitely at financial for the financial interest, but a lot more a lot with a lot more interest on how it impacts the people that were living there, and that was really nice shift to see. I do have a question here. Addressing universal design for tiny houses, such that people of all ages can have accessible dwelling for their lifetime needs. I'm rapidly aging out of the many signature features of my simple tiny house cabin, two lofts, etc. So I don't see what the actual question was. If you're looking for specific ways to be able to make changes to your existing tiny house, or about creating a new tiny house that would meet all of those needs. Mark, can you go ahead and elaborate a little bit on that for me? And I think that was Shorty that just messaged me, so I just want to check that really quickly. Just want to make sure she's able to get in. Okay, she says that she's in. Zach, can you go ahead and promote her as well?
Yeah, sorry. Who were you wanting to promote?
Shorty Robbins. She's my guest webinar crasher. So Mark followed up with, yes, it's difficult to have tradespeople want to work on existing tiny homes. I'm still not entirely sure if you're asking about working on the existing one or making changes to it. I can say that I've definitely made a lot of changes to my house since I've moved into it. It started out, well, I mean, I just built it to the point where I could get it livable, because the reason that I went tiny, the biggest reason was that I was just a very poor newly divorced single mom of two, and I've made so many changes and moved so many things around, as I've lived in it the past 9 years.
All right,
And I
Shorty should be able to join whenever. She's a co-host and she just needs to like turn on her mic and camera.
Yeah, Shorty, if you just click the icons for I, so Shorty is probably mobile as well, because she just wrapped up an appointment. I couldn't find it on my app, Shorty, but maybe you see
Oh,
the
I got, okay, there it is, start video, found it.
awesome.
Okay.
That's funny. I'm supposed to be the techie one.
No, I am in the car. My phone is on Radio Margaritaville all the time, and I had to find it and turn it off. Because y'all probably didn't want to listen to Buffett in the background, or maybe you did, but whatever. There we are.
So Shorty, so the question that we have so far is, somebody wants to know about making changes as they age, on some of the features in their tiny house. They've been living 15 years in a cabin, and what they could do in their 50s is not what they can do by themselves anymore. I wanted to see if there's anything that you want to talk about that first, because you've done a lot of presentations about retirement and living tiny, and
Yeah.
so I want you to go ahead and pop in on that.
I would say, let me just start with sort of, people always say at my age, I'm going to be 67 pretty soon. And people my age will say, oh, I don't want a loft. Well, to me, loft is the most fabulous attic space. And, do a loft now if you can still get up and down from it. But afterwards, it can be storage space and you'll still be able to access it. You just don't have to climb up there to go to sleep. And then look at how you change your main living space downstairs to accommodate a sleeping space. And I think the perfect answer is a Murphy bed. But there's a lot of ways to accommodate sleeping downstairs without subdividing things and making changes.
I was able to just switch over, so fortunately.
I'm sorry, what?
Are you there? I said
Yeah.
I was able to just switch over to video, so I'll have a much better connection now, because my internet isn't as good as my cell here.
Okay.
So that'll be a lot easier. Okay. So like I said, my cell isn't that, my Starlink isn't strong where I'm located, so I didn't hear a lot of your answer. So except for the Murphy bed. I did see another question that was in there, and it was how hard it was to find a place to live with children for living tiny. So Shorty, you live with your grandchild on your community, and you were able to basically kind of create your own community where, like, it's not your property, but you were able to find a place and then start bringing more tiny houses in there.
Yeah, it was kind of like what you did. I had a friend that owned a piece of property, and she invited me to come. Actually, initial invitation was park your house there. She didn't realize I'd be living in it. And so we kind of like, okay, well, but, you know, I've got this, at the time she was 14 and, you know, she needs her own space. So we brought in a gypsy wagon for her to live in for a couple of years. And then we brought in a tiny house instead. And then they had a lot of positive response from people who were using the ranch, that there were tiny houses there. So we gradually increased the size and we've had 5, we're back down to 4, but we have our own little community there. It's nice.
So, but the point that I was getting to was that you have a separate tiny house for your granddaughter, which is
her own
such a
house.
unique, such a unique approach. For me, when I built my tiny house in 2015, and it was really difficult to find parking to begin with at all. But I went on nextdoor.com, and that's how I found somebody's like backyard parking farm. And we've since also added other tiny houses on the property. But choosetiny.com is my directory site, and that has like 350 communities on there or so. And one of the options that you can select is whether it's like seniors only, families only, or no adults only, or not families only, sorry, just adults only. So if you make sure that that you don't check those options, you can look for communities that accept children as well. There's not that many communities that will restrict it, but finding a place that has like the right things that you're looking for. I would say define what it is that you want with for living tiny with your children. Like if you want to be on like where there's other children living there, if having pets is important to them, if a school system is nearby, and then start using those as your like backwards search to figure out what's going to work best for you. But fortunately, there are a lot of options at this point with tiny house parking and tiny house communities. There's so Nextdoor is great. Choose Tiny. There's a few other ones that are up. Like Alexis said earlier, she used the Facebook Marketplace to find parking. So there are lots of resources that are out there. I'm not able to see if there's any other questions right now. Yes, did you say that Shorty helped organize the tiny house festivals on the East Coast in the past, working with United Tiny House? If so, could you talk about future festivals in the region?
The next one coming up is the weekend before Thanksgiving in Palm Coast, Florida. It's on I-95 just past Jacksonville and St. Augustine. And that'll be on Saturday and Sunday at the Florida Agricultural Museum.
Did you say what the date?
Yeah, it's the weekend before Thanksgiving. The dates are kind of gone out of my head, but it's could be the last full. Yeah, I think it's the last full weekend. It's 5 weeks in November this year, so it's last full weekend, I believe, in November.
And I'm going to be at a festival or an event, tiny house event, this weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
Shorty's going to crash that with me as well. So that's going to be in Cape Charles, Virginia, and that's at talkintiny.com. Oh no, I think it's tinytalk.com. I'm not entirely sure. I'll post it on choosetiny.com so you guys can have the link for it. And I am launching a new version of the Choose Tiny directory. So if anybody wants to help test that for me or help with any of the work on it, they can go to choosetiny.com/discord, and it'll take them to the Discord server to pop in on that to see what type of testing or help or anything they'd like to offer with that. There was something else that Talking Tiny, and I'm going to be on a podcast that's coming up soon. It's going to be talking about the intersection of tiny house communities and permaculture, which I think is going to be pretty interesting. And let's see, we got some more questions. Yeah, the Discord link is choosetiny.com/discord. To be more specific, you were asking about New England. I don't know of any ones that are happening in New England right now. But I will say, I know that there used to be tinyhousedates.com. I don't think that is still active, But and I always thought that that was a really funny URL because it was like, is this dating for tiny houses or is it for tiny house event? But I know that Alexis and Christian have on their site, the Tiny House Expedition site, they've got a pretty great events calendar on their site. So I would check there to see if they have any upcoming events.
Yeah, I
Thank
know
you.
that United Tiny House is doing the one in November here in Florida, and then I know they're looking at dates and weekends and locations and stuff for the next one in Georgia. So both of those will be, but that'll be in the spring. But those are the only two I know about. The other group that does tiny house shows, Great American Tiny House Show, I haven't heard any new dates from them recently.
So it looks like Mark has done, they built an intentional community tiny house in Texas, does that say? No, where was that? No, they started out with the idea of building an intentional community. I'm not able to see Zach, if you're there, now that I'm on my phone, I'm not able to see the Q&A anymore through the app, unfortunately. So if people are posting on there, can you pop it into the questions?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for all the tech issues.
No worries.
It's funny because I'm in tech too. Like before I was a web developer, I did IT. So I should be the last person having any tech issues.
Well, I'm driving now, but I'm still paying attention to you guys. I can't look straight at the camera, but we do have tropical storm warnings right now, and the hurricane is coming.
Yeah, so that one's been addressed, but if that's the only one that's in there, then I'll go ahead and talk about that some more about the aging in place. So Shorty had mentioned the Murphy bed, but what, like, just to talk about like costs as far as like having other people come out and do it. I had made, building my own house, I had made quite the boo-boo on my roof. And had to redo my most of my roof. And at that point, living tiny, fortunately, my bank account looked a lot different than it did before living tiny. So I was able to hire out some of the work, and I did some of the work myself. And I was able to replace the roof. So I took out 3 skylights. I'd never do skylights again. I took those out and put on a whole new roof, a much nicer roof, and also redid all of the siding. And materials and some of the labor, it was under $3,000. So the changes that you do make to your tiny house are incredibly affordable because it's such a smaller space. So my living space is pretty much bedroom.
The other thing, Jill, the other thing on that one too is if you've done it yourself or done it alongside somebody and learned things, you can repair it bit by bit instead of one giant repair bill. I'm working on some roof replacement stuff right now too, and I'm doing it at like $25 a pop. Do another piece the next weekend, another piece, and it's really affordable and doesn't, not up on a hot roof in the summer in Florida all day long.
So Shorty also built her own tiny house. So we are both 2 DIY tiny house women. Shorty's is a little bit different. She did hers with SIPs, which is structural insulated panels, which kind of like is put together like a gingerbread house. Mine is traditional stick built. So Shorty was able to get her framing, like quote unquote framing and siding, sheathing up because it's all in one for her. She was able to do that in a day or 2. Mine took quite a bit longer.
In one day, yeah.
Because it's smaller, tradespeople don't like a lot of little build issues. A simple plumbing can cost $4,000. Wow. I live rural, so just getting contractors out there can be quite. So that's a unique hurdle. I'm not sure if that's. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, besides using things like Angie's List or reaching out to people within the tiny house movement to see, like, so on tinyhouse.com, they have a form on there to see if anybody near you is able to get any local work, because that can be very challenging. One of the things that I'm adding to the site is to choosetiny.com is a is several other directories of services and such. So hopefully in the future I'll have something that's available for you, but that absolutely is a challenge. It took me a while to find a plumber that would work on my house, because a lot of them wanted everything to be, you know, by the book, completely what they're accustomed to. They wanted to make sure the permits were pulled, like all that, everything. So it can be a bit more challenging. Somebody's asking you, Shorty, how does your tiny house do in the heat with Florida as well as the wind? I'm in Texas, so I'm concerned about that. I can answer that as well. I'm in Maryland, but go ahead, I'm Shorty.
Yeah. The heat, I'm insulated to R25 in my roof. The SIP's tiny house is R25 completely. The second tiny house that I got for Aurora is R25 in the roof and R18 in the wall. I have a mini split in the first tiny house, and that one mini split keeps it ice cold in the summertime year round. It's great. I have a window air conditioner in the one for Aurora, and that does really well. You know, the cooling really isn't an issue at all. As far as the wind, in general, tiny houses, I do a survey after every hurricane in Florida. I'll do a survey of our membership on Florida tiny house enthusiasts on, you know, how'd you do? How'd you make it through the hurricane? And almost nobody's ever had any wind problems. It's more limbs falling on the house. The house does not present a large enough surface to be really impacted by hurricane wind. It's more, you have to much more worry about a tree falling on your house, which I've had happen 4 times now. It doesn't really rock and roll too much in the wind. I figure when we're building them, especially the ones we're building on wheels, we're building them to a Cat 2 standard anyway, just to get down the highway.
Okay, so we've only got 3 minutes left. We both popped in on this a little bit late, so but I'm going to try to answer that quickly as well. So I live in Maryland, so I get some oppressive heat and some uncomfortable cold. And my tiny house is quite a bit bigger than Shorty's. It's at the time it was like the biggest model that was available. Mine's 28 feet long, 8.5 feet wide. Please build your tiny house 10 feet wide if you're not going to be traveling a lot, at least 10 feet wide. It's my biggest regret going tiny. My tiny house has been in the same spot the whole time. I would love to have the extra 1.5 feet. The floors get very cold, and you can put skirting around the house that does open you up to possible radon issues. So you do need a test for that, and that can help quite a bit. But there is like roll out radiant heat that you can put underneath your flooring that I really wish that I had done that. But like Shorty said, it's a small space, so I can heat it up and cool it down so incredibly quickly. So, yeah. And I do still have the opportunity to put some more insulation in my roof, but it does quite well with staying hot or staying insulated. There's one other point that I want. Wind. I get your your tired wind comes up to me. Like it's much more gentlemanly by the time it gets up here. But it's definitely withstood like 20 like 90 mile per hour wind without, it didn't shudder at all. It was completely fine with all of it. So that's not been an issue. You do put hurricane straps on the roof when you're attaching that, so that helps mitigate that. But as long as it's built appropriately, you shouldn't have any issues with any of the wind but you really do want to take the design into consideration when you are building a tiny house for where you're going to live and where you might want to live in the future. So if you're living in Colorado, having a flat roof probably isn't going to be the best bet for you, because you will have a lot of snow load on it. And that's not going to work out. We've got another question. These are just comments rather. So while I'm waiting for another question to come in, I was just going to make some comments on some things that I've noticed within the movement at the most recent festival that I went to. It's really interesting to me that This used to be such a grassroots effort, and the last couple of events that I've been to, it's really garnered the interest of big industry, and that's really changed the flavor of a lot of things. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's great to get the recognition, but it's also means that there's kind of a loss of like that. Everybody lifting one another up. There's a lot more competition instead of cooperation. But we are getting recognized as no longer being a fad, but as being like a necessity and a viable option. So it's a really interesting outlook for the future. Jill, as you know, I want to survey the tiny house community owners on how they financed. Like has gotten way of finish. Life has gotten in the way of finishing this. Anyone new who is working on compiling this? Thank you, Mark. We can create a survey on my site. Just send me all the questions you want, and I'll pop the survey up, and we can get that information, because that's 100% in line with the stuff that's interesting to my pertaining to my site. Sorry, I'm completely brain dead. That's why I invited Shorty today, because we've been working around the clock on the Choose Tiny stuff and the intentional community stuff, and collabing with them. So brain isn't working.
Yeah,
Great.
no worries. Well, definitely appreciate you still taking the time to make us fit us in, even though you're really busy and whatnot. But appreciate all that you've been doing here. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, definitely. And Shorty, it was great to have you on here. Thanks for sharing your wealth of knowledge there too. And it sounds like you're super connected to the industry and everything. I'm super glad to be connected with you as well. Thanks, Jill, for making that introduction there.
Likewise.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And if you guys want to get in touch with them, go to choosetiny.com, jump on Jill's project that she's working on there. Very helpful, and it's needed for sure. And Shorty, I'm not sure how people can get in touch with you, but if you get in touch with Jill, I'm sure she can send you through. So appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a listing on her site, and my email is shortystinyhouse@gmail.com.
Yeah, Shorty's community is Need More Ranch. There's a listing on my site.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. We'll talk to you later.